Winter in Japan looks calm from the outside. Snow on the roofs, white roads, quiet train stations. But if you go deep enough into Japan's message boards and local rumors, you'll find stories people only talk about when it's dark. Stories about a business hotel in Ikebukuro, where a normal room suddenly looks like a murder scene, and the staff insist nothing happened. A New Year's part-time job that pays stupid money to spend the night alone in a hospital basement, making sure the dead stay where they're supposed to. A woman in white who waits on a frozen roadside in Hokkaido, untouched by the snow, watching drivers pass until one of them answers her. A school gate where a man in a tracksuit appears during third period, dancing the same way every day until one teacher follows him. And a narrow gorge, the Ainu, named Kamui Kotan, the village where the gods live, where some locals swear a woman once walked straight through a moving car and kept going into a tunnel. Tonight we're looking at some of Japan's darkest winter urban legends. So let's start in Tokyo, with a cheap hotel room in Ikebukuro. On a night you really should have stayed home. This first story is known as the Red Room. Here's the bells. This first story is one I found on a Japanese horror site. The poster said it happened to him in a cheap city hotel in Ikebukuro. I'll tell it the way he wrote it. I live in a cheap apartment in Tokyo. It's nothing special, thin walls, small bathroom, the usual. But sometimes when I feel like I need a break, or I want to pretend I'm traveling without actually going anywhere, I stay in a nearby city hotel for a night. What I'm about to tell you is one of those times. It's something that happened when I stayed at a hotel in Ikebukuro. To this day, it makes my skin crawl when I think about it. That evening I bought a novel at a big bookstore by the station, then headed over to the hotel. I checked in, went up to my room, and I took a shower. It was one of those cold nights where the bathroom mirror fogs up instantly, and you don't want to stand around too long after turning the water off. After I finished, I lay down on the bed and started reading. I'd only been turning the pages for a little while when I suddenly became aware that something in the room was bothering me. It was the curtain. There was nothing unusual about it, just a plain cream-colored curtain you'd see in any business hotel. Honestly, I couldn't tell you why it caught my attention. I dragged my eyes back down to the book, but I couldn't focus. No matter how hard I tried to read, my mind kept drifting back to that curtain. When I looked straight at it, it didn't move at all, but when it sat at the edge of my vision, I had a feeling it was swaying very slightly. Of course, the window was closed. There shouldn't have been any draft, and even if there was, I wouldn't have opened it anyway. It was freezing outside. Time slipped by like that. I maybe spent 2 or 3 hours half reading, half turning pages without really taking anything in. And eventually I gave up. I should just sleep. That's what I thought. I switched off the lights and I closed my eyes. After I drifted into that hazy state, not fully asleep but not fully awake either, the curtain came to mind again, out of nowhere. I opened my eyes. The curtain that should have been cream-colored now looked like it had red stains on it. For a second I thought, maybe it's just the neon from outside. Ikebukuro's full of bright red signs flashing all night. It wouldn't be strange for the light to make the curtain look red. But the more I stared at it, the more it looked like something else. The red just wasn't a tint from outside. It looked like someone had spilled blood or tomato juice, and the stain was spreading. The red area slowly growing larger and larger across the fabric. At that point I thought, no, I can't stay in this room any longer. I pushed myself up and moved to run for the door. In that moment my feet slipped on something and I went down hard. It was blood. The entire floor was covered. The bed, my clothes, everything was smeared with thick, wet blood. So, this is the Red Room. I remember that thought flashing through my head. I swallowed the scream that was building in my throat. On my hands and my knees, slipping in the stuff, I crawled and somehow made it to the door. My hand was shaking as it reached for the handle. Before leaving, I turned back to look at the room once more. There, standing in the middle of it, was a man. His whole body was drenched in blood. From his head, brain matter was hanging down, dripping. He was staring right at me. By the time I reached the front desk, I somehow made it through the hallway and the elevator without collapsing. I'm not someone who raises their voice easily. I hardly ever get properly angry at anyone. But this time, I couldn't help it. Hey, what the hell is going on with that room? The front desk clerk just looked at me completely blank. The whole place is covered in blood. There's a guy, his brain, it's all over my clothes. Look, my clothes. My clothes. Huh? I looked down at my clothes. Were perfectly clean. A few minutes earlier they had been soaked, heavy with blood. I can still remember how they felt, clinging to my skin, cold, sticky. But now there wasn't a single stain. Sir, did you have a bad dream? Maybe. The clerk said. His face was expressionless. There was no sympathy, no amusement, nothing. Just that flat hotel service tone. Look, listen, just come with me, I said. Please, there's something wrong with the room. I grabbed his arm without thinking, and I tried to pull him along, back towards the elevator. The moment I did, his body started to tremble. He held his ground, his teeth chattered, and he said in a tight, shaking voice, Anywhere but that room. Please, spare me from that room. That's where his post ended. Online, people started calling it the Red Room of Ikebukuro. They say that the room's still there. Same floor, same cream curtain, same view of the station lights through the window. If the front desk clerk ever tells you, it was just a dream. Or if the clerk goes pale when you ask to change rooms, perhaps you're in the right hotel. Would you stay the night? If you enjoy hearing these kind of winter urban legends from Japan, it really helps if you would drop a like and subscribe, so I know I can bring you some more. And before we head back out into the cold, I want to quickly thank this sponsor for helping me survive these long winter nights. Ho ho ho, let's see what old Saint J has got in his sack for you. Speaking of packages, my TokyoTreat and Sakuraco boxes have just arrived, so let's take a quick snack break. So first up, TokyoTreat. TokyoTreat is a fun and exclusive Japanese snack box packed with Japan's coolest and craziest treats. We're talking Japan-exclusive premium snacks, limited edition chips, noodles, and the latest goodies, shipped directly from Japan straight to your door. Their mission, together with Sakuraco, is simple. We want to invite everyone to experience Japan from the comfort of your own homes. This month's TokyoTreat theme is Snack in Wonderland. Full cozy holiday vibes here. Inside you've got Merry Melon bread, Silent Night salted butter truffles, Santa's strawberry candy roll, Falala French salad potato chips, and loads more festive snacks, all laid out in the booklet so you can see what everything is and where it's from. I have to shout out the double berry Kit Kats. They're classically crunchy and just bursting with sweet strawberry and tangy raspberry flavor. The Christmas Island rice cracker bites are full of savory cheer with a rich, Moorish, salty crunch. And the winter yakisoba honestly feels like a cozy Sapporo winter in a bowl. Rich sauce, warming steam, perfect to eat while you're listening to spooky stories. Now, if you prefer something a bit more traditional to go with your horror marathons, that's where Sakuraco comes in. Sakuraco is a monthly artisan snack box that supports local makers all across Japan. Each box is carefully curated with traditional and seasonal snacks you almost never find outside of Japan. Things like mochi, dorayaki, senbei, and much more. You also get a signature Japanese tea and an exclusive homeware item, so every month it feels like you're building your own Japanese tea table at home. Each box includes a cultural guide booklet with snack details, allergen information, and fun insights into Japanese culture and the regions the snacks came from. This month's theme is holidays in Japan. The holidays over there are full of quiet, snowy moments, and this box really leans into that winter feeling. Inside you'll find matcha mochi, milk, chocolate strawberries, pistachio baumkuchen, Hokkaido baked strawberry chocolate, aonori senbei, and more. All chosen to taste like a Japanese winter. I've brewed the matcha-infused sencha from this month's box, and it blends deep steamed Shizuoka sencha with Kyoto uji matcha. So you get this full-bodied cozy cup where the richness of sencha meets the gentle sweetness of the matcha. With that, I'm going to go straight for the milk chocolate strawberries, premium strawberries that have been expertly freeze-dried to keep their natural flavor, then drenched in this rich milk chocolate is pure indulgence. The pistachio baumkuchen is honestly dangerous. It's made with smooth pistachio paste kneaded right into the batter, so every bite is super tender and moist. And I can't not mention this month's tableware item, the Minoware Indigo Plate. It's crafted by skilled artisans using Japan's iconic indigo blue dye, finished with an overlapping komon pattern that symbolizes eternal expansion and renewal. It just looks so good on the table with all the snacks laid out. I'm going to use this all the time. And of course, that's not everything. There's a whole selection of snacks in the box, and the booklet walks you through all of them with all of the allergen information, so that you can turn it into a proper little tea ceremony at home. If you're missing Japan, like I am, craving real Japanese snacks, or you just want a really good gift idea, well, this is an easy win. Whether it's a treat for yourself, or a big stocking stuffer, or a present for someone who just loves Japan. Treat yourself or a loved one. Use my code JNightmares to get $5 off your first box. Big thanks, as always, to TokyoTreat and Sakuraco for sponsoring this video. Now that we've got something warm and sweet to keep us going, let's step outside of that cozy hotel lobby into the snow and talk about a different kind of winter visitor. In a small town in Hokkaido, long after anyone had heard of urban legends, people were already whispering about a woman who only appeared when the snow was at its worst. They go by different names depending on the region. In Yamagata, she's Yuki Joro. In Niigata, Yuki Joro or Yuki Nessa. In Miyagi, Yuki Bamba. In Nagano, Shiken-ken. In Uwajima, in Ehime, Yuki Baba. And in parts of Miyazaki, Yuki Bajo. Most know her as Yuki Onna. Most of the time she appears on roads when the snow is falling heavily or the wind is driving it sideways. In some places, people say she comes on specific dates. In Tono, in Iwate, on the night of the Little New Year. Or on winter full nights in parts of Aomori. She comes on New Year's Day and disappears on the first rabbit day of the year. The details change from place to place, but there's a common thread. On a winter night, a woman appears. Sometimes she steals your strength by just meeting your eyes. Sometimes she calls out to travelers in the snow. And if they ignore her and walk past, she pushes them into a ravine. Sometimes she leaves a child behind who can never go in the bath because hot water will melt them away. Scholars will tell you that she might be a mountain god in another form, or that her story grew out of old beliefs and then turned into a yokai story over time. But people in the snow country don't really care about that on a dark night. They just know you shouldn't answer a strange woman in a snowstorm. You'd think Hokkaido, with its deep winter snow, would be full of snow woman stories. Surprisingly, there aren't many. One of the few that's still told from the city of Takikawa along the Sorachi River. This is that story. It takes place in the early days of Hokkaido's development around Meiji 25, 1892, where the Hokkaido Coal Railway was laid from Iwamizawa to Sorachitai. Back then, Takikawa wasn't a modern city yet. It was a frontier town, fields being cleared, timber houses going up one by one, the river cutting a dark line through the snow. On winter evenings when the snow was drifting down and the daylight was fading, people started to notice a woman standing by the Sorachi River. She wore a kakumaki shawl wrapped around her shoulders the way women did back then. Her skin was very pale. She didn't walk around or call out or wave. She just stood there on the riverbank, like she was waiting for someone. The local farm boys and the laborers working on the railway line would whisper to each other when they spotted her. Who is she? Is that even a human being? Maybe it's a fox or a raccoon dog disguised as a woman. No one knew where she came from. No one knew where she went. But whenever the snow stopped, she would vanish, as if she'd never been there. At that time, there was a young man working on the railway construction near the Sorachi River. His name was Gosuke. Gosuke had left his hometown in Yamagata to come north and earn money as a laborer. Back home, he'd left behind the woman he loved, his fiancée. He planned to send her money back, work hard for a few years, then eventually return to her. One snowy evening, as Gosuke was heading back after work, he ran into the woman by the river. The snow was coming down in big snowflakes. The riverbank was white and quiet, the world muffled. She was standing there in her shawl, just like the rumors. Up close she looked even more like someone from somewhere else. Her face was white and delicate, and there was a gentleness in the way she held herself. Gosuke's heart lurched. She looked just like the woman he'd left behind in Yamagata. Before he could stop himself, he spoke to her. "Miss, what are you doing out here in the cold?" he asked, and the woman turned her face slightly towards him, snow falling between them. "I was waiting for you," she said. Her voice was soft and completely natural, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. She led him along the riverbank to a small house standing near the water, a place he'd never really noticed before. Inside it was dim, but there was bedding laid out. The air still felt cold, even with the door closed. That night, Gosuke laid with her. Her body was as cold as ice, but he held her anyway, clinging to the feeling that his lover from home had somehow appeared here, in this northern land. When he woke up at dawn, the woman was gone. There was no sign of anyone else in the house. The only thing he noted was that the futon was damp, as if it had soaked up the melted snow or cold water during the night. The next day, when work was over and the snow started to fall again, there she was, in the same place by the river. She didn't call out to him, she just stood and waited. When he approached, she silently turned and walked the same route to that little house. He followed without thinking. The same thing happened, a night in her arms, her body cold enough to hurt, her skin like something not quite alive. And in the morning she was gone, and the bedding was wet and chilly. This went on every evening. Work, riverbank, the pale woman in the shawl. Each night Gosuke went with her. Each night he held that freezing body close, as if he could fill it with warmth by himself. It didn't take long for people around to notice that something was wrong. Gosuke, who had once been sturdy and strong from labor, started to waste away. His cheeks hollowed out, his shoulders shrank. He coughed more, his movements lost their strength. The other workers grew worried. One evening, a co-worker finally decided to follow him after work, keeping his distance in the snow. And gathering dusk, he watched as Gosuke headed towards the riverbank and then disappeared from view. The co-worker crept closer, expecting to see a woman's silhouette, a house, some sign of company. Instead, he found Gosuke in a hole in the riverbank, a kind of rough cave in the frozen earth near the water. Gosuke was curled up inside, embracing a thin icicle with both arms, holding it to his chest as if it were a person. He was fast asleep. There was no woman, no house, just a man clinging to frozen water in a dark hole. Not long after that, Gosuke was found as a cold corpse. Whether he died that night or a little later isn't clear. What people remember is the image, a young man who had come north to work, found lifeless in the winter. Cold near the river, he kept walking to every evening. And the woman, from that day on, she was never seen again. People in Takekawa say that the Snow Woman's true identity was the woman Gosuke had left behind in Yamagata. After he went north to work, she suddenly fell ill and died. Her longing to see him again turned into a restless soul that headed towards the snow country he'd gone to, searching for him. Her spirit took on a form he remembered, the pale face, the gentle manner, and waited by the Sorachi River at dusk, wrapped in her shawl. That's why she looked like his lover. That's why she held him every night, even though her body was as cold as ice, and that's why once Gosuke died, she disappeared. The story had been passed down as a sad love tale from Hokkaido's pioneering days. More tragic than monstrous, some people feel it's almost too sorrowful to call it a Yuki Onna story. But if you look at the pattern, a woman who only appears on snowy evenings, who lures a man away from the living world, who leaves behind nothing but meltwater and a corpse, it fits the shape of the Yuki Onna legend from all over Japan. It's just that, in this one, the love and the homesickness are pushed right up to the front. There were a lot of migrants from Yamagata and Takekawa back then. It's said that this story may have started as something they told each other on long, freezing winter nights when they were missing home and worrying about the people they'd left behind. They already knew the old stories about Yukijoro from their own region. Maybe sitting around a stove in some drafty wooden house watching the snow pile up outside, they took that old shape and gave it a new setting. The river, the railway work, the man clinging to an icicle instead of a living woman. And now it's just one more Yuki Onna tale among the many. Hi, Jay here. I found a more recent story from the same sort of area, and I wanted to include it, so here we go. This one's from a truck driver I used to work with. I'll call him Shun. Shun used to drive nights between Sapporo and Ashikawa. In winter, you're basically living in a snow globe on that route. Headlights, white tunnel, nothing much else. One January night, past midnight, he was coming up near Takekawa. The snow had picked up again, blowing across the road. He turned the radio off because it was all static, and he let the engine and the wipers fill the cab. That's when he noticed her. At the edge of his lights, by the guardrail, on the riverside, there was someone standing there. A woman. She wore something white that hung straight down. Coat or kimono, he couldn't tell. Long dark hair, no umbrella, no hat. She was just standing there in the snow. There were no houses around, no stalled cars, just her and the rail. He eased off the accelerator without thinking. As the truck got closer, he realized that the snow wasn't sticking to her. The flakes hit her and slid away. Everything else, road signs, barriers, mirrors, was getting coated. He flicked his high beams once, and the woman slowly turned her head towards him. Her face was pale, almost the same color as the snow around her. Her eyes looked dark and wet, as if she'd been crying, but the rest of her face didn't really move. The temperature inside the cab dropped. His breath came out white in front of his mouth, and even though the heater was on the same setting, the air from the vents felt like it had gone cold. As he drew level with her, she shifted closer to the guardrail, hands now resting on the snow-covered metal, like she was about to climb over. For a second he thought, is she about to take her own life? And his hand moved towards the hazard lights. Then this really basic fear kicked in, not just about her jumping, but about what might happen if he actually stopped and spoke to her. He kept the truck rolling. When he checked the side mirror a moment later, she was still there by the rail. The mirror shook with the movement of the truck. When steadied, the spot was empty, just snow and metal. The cold in the cab didn't lift until he reached the next service area. Inside, with a hot coffee warming his hands, he ended up telling an older driver, Nakajima, I think I saw something weird near Takikawa. Nakajima didn't laugh, he just asked, white clothes? Long hair? No snow on her? When Shun nodded, Nakajima said, listen, don't stop if you see her. Don't roll your window down. And don't answer if she talks to you, okay? According to him, the story's been around for a while. The woman in white by the river stretch near Takikawa. Only on bad winter nights. Sometimes she's by the rail, sometimes further down the bank, but always alone, always dry. People say she's waiting for someone who never came back. Nakajima told him, and if you answer when she calls out, you might end up being someone who never came back. He said it like a joke, but his face didn't match the tone. Since then, whenever Shun drives that section, he turns the heater up a notch and keeps his eyes strictly center of the lane. So now you've heard the old story about Yuki Onna by the Sorachi River, and the newer one about the woman in white standing by the guardrail on winter nights. If you ever find yourself driving that stretch in a snowstorm, and you see someone like that in your headlights, would you look straight at her? Would you stop? After all this time, do you think she's still out there, waiting for someone? Out there on the road, in the middle of a blizzard, you worry about something inhuman stepping out of the snow. Well, our next story is different. This one, everyone involved, started out completely human. Have you heard that rumor about the corpse washing job? I always thought it was just internet horror. Then one winter, I found out my university hospital actually does hire students for night shifts in the anatomy wing. And that's where this starts. It was late December, just before New Year. My part-time job had paused for the holidays, my bank balance was dying, and the snow on campus was getting thicker by the day. A guy in my seminar mentioned a high-pay night shift at the uni hospital. Careful though, he said, smirking. Might be that job. He showed me his group chat, messages like, is the corpse washing part-time real? Med faculty basement one night, 30,000 yen? My senpai did it once and never went back. I laughed it off, but I still took a photo of that number. Rent and heating don't care if something seems a bit sketchy. The hospital sat on a hill overlooking the city. That night the road up was lined with dirty snowbanks, and those round mirrors you see at corners were all fogged up with frost. I went in through the staff entrance just before 10. The man waiting for me, in pale blue scrubs, introduced himself as Technician Mukai. Mid-40s, tired eyes, ID badge on a lanyard. You're the student? He asked. From the university. He barely reacted when I confirmed, just led me downstairs. We went past imaging, past supply rooms, into a corridor that felt more like a warehouse. The air got colder as we went, and there was this sharp, chemical smell, like disinfectant with something sour, underneath. In a tiny staff room he gave me forms to sign, confidentiality, emergency contact, that sort of thing. You'll be in the anatomy division, he said. Teaching cadavers, no patients, no families, just maintenance and prep. I tried to sound casual. So, it really is that job I've heard about then. He gave me a flat look. Relax, he said. We don't throw students in a tank. There are regulations now. That now stuck in my head. You'll help me check the bodies for January's classes, he went on. Wipe down surfaces, check tags, maybe help move donors. I'll be with you the whole time. And listen, don't do anything unless I tell you to. Understood? I agreed. The shift was 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. New Year's Eve. Outside the lab door, he gave me 3 rules. You do nothing unless I tell you. No opening covers, doors, or tags on your own. If you feel sick or lightheaded, you tell me and we go up. Formalin fumes and bravado equals passing out. He hesitated for a second. You do not come down here alone. If someone in scrubs asks you for help down here, and I'm not with them, you say no. There's no one else assigned on this floor tonight except us. He didn't say it like a joke. It sounded like a very real possibility. He swiped his card and we went in. If you're imagining some horror movie dungeon, it wasn't like that. It looked like a bureaucratic version of hell. White walls, stainless steel tables, steel trolleys, everything numbered and labeled. And at the back of the room, taking up most of the far wall, was the tank. A huge metal basin with a heavy, hinged lid. On the side in faded letters, formalin fixation. Even closed, the smell hit harder in here. Chemical, eye-watering, with a sweet rot note that clung to the back of your throat. Masks stay on in this room, Mukai said, and don't lean over the tank when I open it. We started with the tables. Each one had a long shape under a waxed cloth, held down with thick straps. Mukai checked the tag at the foot, donor number, date, then peeled the cover back, just enough to check the condition. The bodies didn't look much like people anymore. Wrong color, wrong texture. Through 2 pairs of gloves, they felt heavy and rubbery, like meat that had been sat in water too long. Fine, he'd mutter. No mold, structures holding. Sometimes he'd ask me to lift up a shoulder or an arm. The skin was cold in the way that didn't feel like normal cold, more like fridge cold that had sunk deep. Outside the small frosted window, you couldn't see anything but shifting light. Every now and then, a gust of wind would make the building creak. Every couple of hours he checked his watch. 5-minute break, he said. Tank, after. Didn't like the way he said that. When we came back, he went straight to it. He switched on the extractor vent above, unclipped the lid and glanced at me. Stand back, don't breathe over it. He cracked the lid. Even a few steps away, the smell that seeped out turned my eyes to sand. The liquid inside was the color of strong tea, and beneath the surface were shapes. Limbs, ribs, parts of bodies laid out on metal racks. Some were fully submerged, and some had bits breaking the surface. A shoulder here, a knee there. These are long-term donors, Mukai said quietly. Research classes. If they dry out, we've got problems. So we have to make sure they stay under, and their tags don't wander off. He took down a long stainless steel hook. See that one? He pointed to a tag floating near the edge. We'll fix that later. And that back there? He frowned. Always the same places, he muttered. Near the far end, a pale back had risen until the shoulder blades were almost out of the liquid. We need that under, he said. You hold the rail, I'll push him down. He tried for a joke. Relax, they don't bite. It didn't land. He braced himself and pressed the hook between the shoulder blades. The body rocked a little, air bubbles streaming up around it. Gas builds up inside, he said. Makes him buoyant, nothing supernatural. He put more weight on the hook. The body sank a bit, then tilted, like something was pushing back. from underneath. The hook jerked. The face rolled into view through the brown liquid. Eyes stitched, mouth stitched, skin bloated and pale. Still, my brain screamed at me to look away. I gripped the rail. "Come on," he muttered through his mask. He shoved again. But what I saw next is the part that I keep replaying. As the body went down, a hand broke the surface near my side of the tank. An arm I hadn't noticed swung up with movement. Fingers, wrinkled and white. For a moment the hand hung there, wrist on the edge, like someone was about to pull themselves up. Then the fingers curled, slow but deliberate, and the whole arm slid back under. The formalin sloshed, droplets splashing my sleeves. "Step back!" Mukai snapped at me. I stumbled away from the tank. He held the hook a moment longer, then let go. The body stayed down. The ripples calmed. Only the vent and the slow drip, drip, drip of the hook broke the silence. He shut the lid with more force than necessary. "We're done," he said. "Out." In the corridor, I tried to ask, Did you see? He cut me off. "Formalin plays tricks on your eyes," he said, really fast. "You're tired, refraction, whatever. You'll see movement where there isn't any." I mean, that's not what I... He cut me off again. "We're taking a break upstairs," he said. "Now go wash your hands properly." That was the end of it for that night. We finished surface cleaning, logged some more numbers, and by dawn, I was on a half-melted pavement, watching my breath smoke in the cold, and pretending I couldn't smell formalin in my scarf. The money hit my account a few days later. It was exactly as promised. I probably could have filed the whole thing away as a creepy night shift if I hadn't been bored enough over New Year to Google the urban legend properly. You know what comes up if you search corpse washing part-time job? Articles saying it's fake, universities denying that they ever let students handle formalin, people explaining it probably came from fiction or funeral work, but in the true scary story sites and old threads, certain details repeat. That sound familiar to me. University hospital, anatomy lab, formalin tank with bodies that float up if you don't push them down, strict instructions not to work alone, not to stay past a certain time, and one line in particular: if you push them down and they push back, you have to pretend you didn't notice. If you react, they'll drag you in. I put my phone face down when I read that, because the one thing Mukai did, the second that arm moved, was tell me to look away. I never went back to the anatomy floor. I saw med students with their anatomy atlases after the holidays, heard them complaining about formalin headaches and how bad the lab smelled. I just kept my mouth shut. Months later, I ran into Mukai by chance on a completely different floor. He was carrying a clipboard, same scrubs, same tired eyes. "Oh, thanks again for that New Year's shift," I said. "The money really helped." He nodded. "You're welcome," he said. "You doing okay?" "Yeah, I haven't been back downstairs." "Good," he said. "You don't need to." He turned to go, and then, almost as an afterthought, he added, "Every year around this time, someone asks me if that job's real. I tell them the same thing." "What's that?" I asked. "That it's not what they think," he said. "And if they've already heard the story," he looked at me, "they don't need to come down and make their own." And then he walked off. So, that's my version of the corpse washing story I've seen online. Maybe it was the fumes and nerves in my brain filling in gaps. Maybe nothing moved under that liquid except bubbles. Or maybe that's why the legend keeps going. One student, one winter, one night in the tank room, telling themselves it was all in their head, and quietly wondering, every time they smell disinfectant or see snow in the dark, if the bodies did push back for real. Would you notice? And if you did, would you admit it? That job was supposed to be strictly adults only. No patients, no families, definitely no children. But this next legend on our list doesn't happen in a basement or a lab. It happens in broad daylight at a normal elementary school, where the scariest thing is supposed to be homework. The kids there have a name for the man who waits by their school gate. They call him Akichin. You know how every school has at least one weird rumor, like, don't go into that bathroom after dark, or there's a face in that window if you look up during cleaning time. At my elementary school, that rumor wasn't about a ghost in a classroom or a cursed staircase. It was about a man at the school gate. We called him Akichin. He was this strange middle-aged guy who started showing up around third period almost every day, right when the morning chill still hadn't lifted and the classrooms were finally warming up. He'd appear at the front gate. He always wore the same thing, a black cap and a tracksuit. No one knew who he was or why he was there. He wasn't a parent anyone recognized, and he never came inside to talk to the teachers. He just stood by the gate and danced. Every day, same time, same place. He did the exact same dance too. I'll try my best to describe it. He'd swing his hands up and down and shake his head around like he was trying to rattle something loose in his neck. All the teachers knew about him. When we first started the school, everyone would press up against the windows during break, or peek from the entrance whispering, "There he is again. What's wrong with this guy? What's this guy's deal?" It was kind of like a weird free show. Even the cold didn't matter much on those mornings. Kids would stick their faces to the glass, breath fogging it up, and just watch him. But as the months went by, we got used to him. He just kind of faded into the background. He was that guy who dances at the gate. Once you noticed him, your brain would file it away as part of the scenery, like bare trees by the fence or the white paint peeling on the gym wall. It was around that time this happened. I was out in the schoolyard playing jump rope with everyone. Back then there was this thing called rhythm jump rope, and it was really popular. You'd jump in time with a radio program, they'd play music and call out the rhythm, and if you kept up, you'd advance to higher levels. Our school was obsessed with it. Even on cold days, we'd be out during break, breath puffing white, fingers going numb on the plastic handles, while the radio in the equipment room blasted. Ready? And 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Anyway, one day I forgot my jump rope at school. It was the one I always used. This was on a Saturday. On weekends, there was only one teacher on duty in the whole school, and I didn't want someone borrowing my rope or it going missing, so I went back to get it. The school grounds feel different with no kids around. Grey sky, frozen dirt, and the building kind of just hunched over in the cold. I went to the entrance, and the on-duty teacher let me in, and it was just the two of us. We went upstairs to my classroom to grab the rope. I found it, and I picked it up. As I did, I happened to look outside the window. For some reason, Akichin was standing there in the middle of the schoolyard. Not at his usual place by the gate. He was inside the grounds. He wasn't dancing this time. He was just standing there on the empty yard in his black cap and tracksuit in that grey, cold light. I stared, thrown off by how wrong it looked, and then our eyes met. This was the first time I'd really seen his face. Up until then, he'd always been a shape at a distance, head jerking around as he did that weird dance. You couldn't really focus on his expression. Now he was still, close enough that I could see every detail. The instant I understood what I was looking at, a shudder went through me. His face was turned sideways, not a slight tilt. His head was twisted so far that his face was basically horizontal to his body, like his neck had been bent to a right angle and left there. His eyes, nose and mouth were all pointing straight off to the side instead of forward. When our eyes met, he wasn't smiling or glaring or anything. His face was completely blank. And that somehow made it worse. The very next moment, Akichin suddenly took off running. He sprinted full speed across the schoolyard, straight towards the school building we were in, and then it hit me. When the teacher had let me in just now, he'd unlocked the front doors and left them open. Nothing was stopping that man from coming straight inside. I was just an elementary school kid. My legs went out from under me, and I dropped down where I was, grabbing onto the teacher without thinking. The teacher looked genuinely startled too. He reacted quick enough. He snatched up one of those big meter-long rulers that teachers seem to have, the kind of thing they use on the blackboard, and he stepped out into the corridor and started down the stairs towards the entrance. A few seconds later, from below, I heard someone pounding up the stairs, fast, heavy steps, slamming against the concrete and echoing up the stairwell. "Hide," the teacher said. I hurried over to the wall and I pressed myself flat against it, out of sight of the stairs. He stayed there in the hallway, facing the top of the stairwell, clutching that stupidly long ruler. From where I was, I just peeked around the doorway. He looked exactly like a hero, facing down some invisible enemy. "Naoki!" he yelled my name. "Until I say it's okay, you don't move from that spot, understand?" Hearing him shout like that, sounding so sure of himself, actually calmed me down for a second. My heart was still hammering, but I thought, Sensei's here, he's gonna handle things. The footsteps kept coming up, and then all of a sudden they stopped. A few minutes crawled by. No footsteps, no voices, no movement. The building was so quiet I could hear the ticking of the classroom clock and the faint hum of the lights overhead. Eventually I couldn't stand it anymore. I leaned out a bit and peeked towards the stairs. There was nobody there. No teacher on the landing, no strange man. Those pounding footsteps had completely disappeared. The stairwell was just empty concrete and handrails. Right then, "Naoki, you can come out now." I heard that. It came from somewhere along the corridor, not too far away. But it wasn't the teacher's voice. The tone was close, but the way my name came out was wrong. There was no familiar rhythm, no warmth. It sounded like someone trying to copy him, repeating the right words with the wrong feeling. All that "Sensei will protect me" confidence vanished instantly. In an instant, it tilted over into a heavy, sharp kind of fear. For a while I stayed there by the wall, shaking like a leaf. A part of me wanted to get out of there immediately. Another part of me was stuck on that voice. If I stepped out again and it spoke again, closer this time, I didn't know what I'd do. Those two feelings pulled against each other, and I just stood there, unable to decide. In the end, I forced myself to move. I pushed away from the wall and ran for the stairs. The moment I started running, footsteps started up behind me from the corridor. Those same heavy footsteps, like somebody in indoor shoes taking big steps coming after me from down the hall. I didn't look back, I just ran. That was all I could manage. No clever plan, no checking if the teacher was there. Just getting away from that voice and those footsteps. I charged down the stairs, down towards the entrance. The stairwell felt even colder than before, like I was running through a pocket of air that didn't quite belong in the building. I pushed through the front door and burst outside. From there I headed straight for the school gate. By the time I reached it and grabbed onto the metal bars, I realized I couldn't hear the footsteps anymore. Somewhere along the way they'd stopped. I stood there crying so hard my scarf was damp and my throat hurt. Breath steaming in the cold air. I wiped at my face with my sleeve and turned back to look at the school building. Up on the floor I'd just been on, at the classroom window I'd peeked from a little while ago. The teacher and Akichin were both sticking their faces out, side by side, watching me. A few days later, that teacher was sitting in the staff room like nothing had happened. When I glanced in, he looked completely normal. But if you didn't know, you'd think Saturday was just a regular day. But after seeing him at that window with Akichin, I couldn't bring myself to talk to him anymore. I didn't want our eyes to meet. Just passing the staff room made my stomach knot up. About a week after the incident, the teacher quit and left the school. and we never got a real explanation for why. One day he was there and the next his desk was empty. The adults just said he had his reasons and changed the subject. As for Akichin, no one saw him again after that. No more dancing at the gate during third period, no more black cap and tracksuit silhouette. It was like someone had quietly removed him from the daily routine. Or maybe someone else took his place. Like he'd handed over a baton and someone kept going with it. I honestly don't want to remember that day anymore. There are too many things that just don't add up to me. What happened on the stairs when them footsteps stopped? Where did my teacher actually go? Whose voice called my name? And who or what chased me down the corridor? And most of all, why were the teacher and Akichin together at that window watching me from the classroom? Even now when I remember Akichin's face, that sideways face, I get a chill down my back. Sometimes it feels like he's slowly coming closer, step by step, from somewhere just behind me that I can't quite see. That's all though. As for the elementary school, I think it's still probably there somewhere. I'm really not sure. I'm pretty sure there are other people who know about Akichin too. Maybe some other people remember him. That's one of those stories that gets passed down from year to year inside a single school. Ask 10 former students and you'll get 10 slightly different versions, I guess. But our final story was bigger than that. This next one is tied to an entire landscape, a gorge, a tunnel, and a name the Ainu gave it that basically says, this place belongs to something else. Don't linger. To finish this winter collection, let's go back to Hokkaido, to a place called Kamui Kotan. On paper, it's a scenic gorge between Ashikawa and Sapporo. Steep rock walls, the Ishikari River below, an old white bridge, a tunnel cut into the mountain. In Ainu, the name means the village where gods live. Locals will tell you that this wasn't meant exactly as a compliment. It was more like a warning. This is a place for gods and the dead. Ordinary people shouldn't really hang around here. These days it appears in travel guides and haunted spots lists. People talk about the white-robed woman near the bridge, footsteps on the span when no one's behind you, strange accidents around the tunnel. Here's the setting. This part's my family story. Hi, Jay here. I will flash some photos of the actual location on the screen at certain points and leave a link to the map in the description. Back to the story. Waking up at the same place. Ashikawa was one of those places we lived in when I was small. Because of my dad's job, we always bounced around the north, but from around the age of 3 to 3rd grade, Ashikawa was home. The road to Sapporo ran straight through Kamui Kotan. If you didn't take the expressway, you had to go down that gorge, dark trees, the river, the bridge, the tunnel. Even as a kid, I knew my mum hated that stretch. We'd visit relatives in Sapporo and drive back late in winter, heater on, snow hitting the windscreen in waves. I'd be out cold in the back seat, lying under a blanket, half still in my coat. And every single time the same thing happened. I'd sleep the whole way until we reached Kamui Kotan. Right before the tunnel and the bridge, I'd snap awake. No reason, just eyes open, staring at that black rock wall and the arc of the tunnel entrance as the headlights picked it up. My mum never stopped there. No toilet break, no vending machines, nothing. She'd keep her hands tight on the wheel and drive through. I didn't think too hard about it back then. Later, when I heard what happened to my parents before I was born, it suddenly felt a lot less random. The night they hit someone. This was before I was born, when my mum was pregnant with me actually. Both my parents worked at the same place in Asahikawa. One winter night, they went to a farewell party for a colleague. It ran late. When they finally left, it was that deep Hokkaido night where the snow itself feels louder than the traffic. They got into my dad's car to drive home. The temperature outside was somewhere around -20. No houses were along that part of the road, no pavements, just a narrow strip of tarmac, high snowbanks, and the river down in the dark below. There wasn't really an alternative route. If you wanted to get back to the city, you went through Kamui Kotan. That was it. My dad has never been the sensitive type to anything spiritual. His family has some loose temple connection in the past, but he's the if I can't see it, it's not there type. Now my mum's the opposite. Her side has Shinto priests, and she's always had this strong sense of intuition. She already disliked Kamui Kotan, but changing the route just wasn't possible. So she got in the passenger seat and told herself just go to sleep, get through it. They left the last streetlights behind, the car's headlights carved, a tunnel out of dark, snowflakes blowing across it sideways. The river was just a black absence beyond the guardrail. My mum, tired from the party and pregnancy, nodded off. Then just before the tunnel, my dad stamped on the brake. The car shuddered on the snow-packed road. The seatbelt dug into my mum's shoulder. She jerked awake and grabbed the dashboard. What happened? My dad was staring straight ahead, gripping the wheel hard enough to make his knuckles pale. I just hit a woman, he said. Mum looked out. There was nothing in the headlights, just the tunnel mouth, the white line of snow at the edge of the road, and the dark trees. It made no sense. Middle of the night, mountain road, -20. Who on earth would be walking around out here? Every part of my mum's instinct was telling her, this isn't right. Don't get out. Don't look too hard. My dad, being the practical type, unbuckled his belt anyway. If I hit her, we can't just leave her, he said. I have to check. He stepped out into the air that burns your lungs and started walking around the car. No body, no footprints in the snow, no dents, no footmarks on the bumper, nothing. He even checked under the car, checking the front again with his bare hands, breath blasting white onto the beams, fingers going numb. Nothing. He finally got back into the driver's seat, closed the door, and just sat there for a second. And then he said, almost to himself, come to think of it, she didn't fall down. She didn't hit the ground. What? My mum asked. The woman, he said slowly. She was in the lane, standing, facing us. I saw her clearly in the headlights. I hit the brakes, but she didn't go down. She just stayed upright and went straight through the car. He moved his hand in this straight downward motion, like something sliding through metal and glass through both of them. The moment he said it, they both felt it. Like the forest on either side of the road had suddenly filled up. Like the rock walls and the tunnel mouth and the river below the bridge had all turned to look at the car at the same time. Not just one stare, many. My mum said it felt like being on a stage you didn't know you stepped onto. She told my dad, just go, don't stop, we'll talk later. He didn't argue. They drove the rest of the gorge in silence, the tunnel swallowing up the sound of the engine and spitting it back, flat and strange. Only when they were past Kamui Kotan, back where they could see the lights of the next town, did either of them really breathe properly again. After that night, my mum avoided Kamui Kotan in the dark whenever she could. She always said, that place is bad. I mean, even your father saw something there and he never sees anything. The thing is, my parents' story isn't the only one. Kamui Kotan has picked up all kinds of stories over the years. Nighttime dares where a group of students walk through the tunnel, laughs it off, then on the way back the driver suddenly mutters, whatever you do, don't look down at my feet, because he can feel something under the pedals. People who cross the white bridge and swear they can hear an extra pair of footsteps at their back, always half a step behind, and when they stop, the sound stops. When they hurry, it hurries. A pale woman in white, hair down, seen standing by a little hut near the bridge or by the phone box further up the road. If you pass her, you hear footsteps behind you, and when you turn around, there's no one on the walkway. Add in the area's history, old railway accidents, drowning in the Ishikari, individuals jumping to their deaths from the bridge, and you get why locals call it one of those places you go through and not to. My family's just one entry in a long list. When I look back at those winter drives from Sapporo to Asahikawa, the pattern makes my skin crawl a bit. Every time we went that way, I slept peacefully through the flat country, through the smaller towns, and even on those long straight stretches. And then, as soon as the car started to roll down towards Kamui Kotan, just before the bridge and just before the tunnel where my dad had braked years earlier, my eyes would open. Not because anyone called my name, not because we hit a bump. I would just wake up, staring at the tunnel, like my unconscious mind knew something it didn't want to share with me. I never told my mum until much later. When I did, she went quiet for a long moment and then said, "Don't say stuff like that. I'll never sleep again." Nowadays, there's an expressway that lets you glide right past Kamui Kotan without ever seeing the gorge. If you're a normal driver going between Sapporo and Asahikawa, you can avoid that place completely. But the old road is still there, and people still go to it at night on dares. They still walk to the tunnel, take photos on the bridge, kill the headlights, just to see how dark it really gets out there. So here's the part you can answer for yourself. If you ever find yourself on that old road in winter, snow piled high on either side, river black under the bridge, dashboard clock edging past midnight, and a woman appears in your lane lit up by your headlights, do you stamp on the brakes and check the road? Or do you keep your hands on the wheel and hope she passes straight through, like she did with my parents? And if you've got a kid asleep in the back seat, snoring softly under a blanket, pay attention to when they wake up, because people in Asahikawa still talk about Kamui Kotan, and no one seems to be completely sure whether that woman by the tunnel ever left, or whether she's still standing there in the snow, waiting for the next pair of headlights to come around the bend. If you've made it all the way to the end of these winter urban legends, thanks for staying out in the cold with me tonight. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments which part is going to stick with you while you're trying to get to sleep later. This isn't the last time we'll be wandering through Japan in the snow. Next time we're diving even deeper into the dark with winter horrors from Japan, true accounts and hauntings that go beyond urban legend. Until then, keep warm, keep the lights low, and I'll see you soon.